As I look back on innovation programs that I've been involved with, one key success factor is the existence of an innovation champion. Who are they? How do you find them? And most importantly, how do you keep them in your organization? I'll be right back.
This is the Killer Innovations Podcast with Phil McKinney. Keep in mind that the information and opinions expressed in this podcast are Phil's, and Phil's alone, and they don't necessarily reflect those of his past, current, or future employers. Now, here's Phil McKinney.
Over the years, I've gotten in the habit of doing a post-mortem after I've completed innovation programs. It's actually a good practice of just looking back and seeing what worked, what didn't work, and how you can improve for the next time. One of the things as I'm going through and looking at some innovation programs that I'm wrapping up right now, and I looked at what were the key success factors. What really resulted in the success of some of these programs? And one of the universal themes that I've seen, and I look back over all the years of programs and products and services that I've led and developed and introduced to the market, the one key success factor is that one individual that I call the innovation champion. Now, what are innovation champions? These are the people that are on your team, in your organization, or somebody you've met that is just absolutely passionate about this idea. I use the analogy of the person standing on your desk with their hair on fire, just absolutely in your face saying, this is the best idea, and this is what we should be working on, and this is why, and here's why, I think it's the best idea. These are the people that just bring the passion to a project or a program. They'll do almost anything to see this idea become a reality. So why are they so important? Well, in my case, when I look at people that I put together on an innovation team, give me passion. Give me authentic passion. People who are really involved, who really understand this market, really understand the customer, and who are absolutely fanatical about delivering or solving a problem that they see or they, in many cases, experience themselves. Now, in many cases, this innovation champion may not be the best person to run the team. They may come in with a very specific skill set, but give me the passion. I'll go build the right team. I'll go bring in the marketing people and the finance people and the technologist or whoever needs to be involved. But I need that passion. Now, in this case, when I look back between programs that I've worked on that have been highly successful, ones that have been so-so, and ones that have been absolute duds, I can really tie it back to the lack or the existence of these innovation champions. And typically, for any program that I'm involved in, it really starts off by finding that one person, kind of the heart and soul of the project, of that program. Now, in some cases, management comes up with an idea and then wants to put together a team to go implement that idea. Well, who owns the idea? There is no innovation champion. It may have come out of a brainstorming session among senior management. Some executive may have come up with the idea, but they're not going to be directly involved. You don't have the heart and soul. In that case, what you have is a project. A project that may or may not be successful. A project that more than likely will get off track, and as the end result will not deliver what was originally perceived. You need to be intimately involved. Now, we can all point to major high-tech companies that have senior executives who not only come up with the ideas, but who are extremely passionate about it. And you can look at their success. Other companies where the ideas are generated by some remote organization and thrown over the wall to another team to have them implement it, and there's no champion involved, it shows in the end product. So the key here is how do you find the champion? In many cases, it's the champions that I look for who bring the ideas. If I try to force an idea and create the champion, I've had some success in that, but all in all, it hasn't been widely successful. It's been really about having that person who's passionate and who has the idea. So how do you find them? You just wait for that person to come flying onto your desk with the hair on fire? No. The key is to get out and about, engaged with the people within your organization. Now, I've gotten kind of into the habit of asking people that I haven't met within the organization the first time I meet them. I always ask them the same question. What are you working on that is exciting? Not just what are you working on, which is kind of the day-to-day job, but what are you working on that is exciting? Now, recently, a program that I was involved with, I met an engineer. We were traveling together to go talk to a company. As we were getting ready to board the plane, I asked this engineer, what are you working on that is exciting? Now, in this case, this engineer described something that they were working on, a secret project. Their management didn't know about it. They had it hidden under the desk. They literally had stolen some parts from the supply cabinet and had built this product. They had literally prototyped it on their own time, using their own energy and their own passion to prove out that their idea would actually work. Now, in that case, we actually took that secret project, shined a spotlight on it, took that individual as the champion, built a team around it, and then delivered products against that passion. So that's just one example. But what I've found is finding these champions significantly increases the success of the overall program. So again, what I've done and what works for me is every time I meet somebody within the organization who I don't know and I don't know what they're working on, I'll ask them, what are you working on that is exciting? What's exciting to you? Now, for people who I know, you kind of get in the habit of you think you know those people, but you have to kind of understand what are their hobbies? What are their passions outside? Are they into video, photography, hiking, sports, travel, whatever it is? Understand what really drives people. What are they really enthusiastic about? What is that passion that just drives them? And by understanding the people within your organization and what really excites them, you can uncover potential champions around ideas that are going to solve products or solve problems that will give you killer products or killer innovations. Now, if they're external, the issue here is you got to make it easy. Someone may have an absolute great idea. They're clearly a champion. They're outside your organization. But how do they find you? How do they find their way through the complexity of getting to you to give you the best ideas? You have to make it easy. You've got to make it bold. You got to make it easy. You got to make it just insanely simple for people to reach through your organization and get the ideas on your desk. You want that person who's absolutely passionate and convinced. Now, believe me, you end up kissing a lot of pigs to find those ideas that are really breakthroughs. But trust me, it's worth the effort. And when you find the person who not only has the passion with the right idea, that is the winning combination that's going to result in just an absolute breakthrough product. Now, the other way to find them externally is search out passionate people. Find out people who are really interested in an area of your interest or your business. The way to do this is use the social networkings. Go out to Facebook. Go out to LinkedIn. People tend to reveal a lot more about themselves on these social sites. It's a lot easier to find these people than you think. The key is you got to go out and you got to invest the energy to find those people. Find people that have a unique voice. With all of the user-generated content that's being generated out there, find people that have a unique voice and a unique passion in an area that's of interest to you. They're harder to find externally, but guess what? They're out there. You just got to go find them. You got to search them out, and you got to be able to find a way to bring them into your organization and keep that passion. Now, this opens up another issue, which is how do you keep them? You found that champion. You've got them on a program. How do you keep them? You have to understand what motivates them. In many cases, what I have found with these innovation champions is the fact that what motivates them is their ability to see their dream become a reality. In my organization, it's about building product and being able to take your family and friends and point to a product and say, you know something, I built it. And that is one great product. You have to find out what motivates your innovation champions. And like I said, in many cases, it's about seeing their dream become a reality. The other is protection. Innovation champions tend to be what I would refer to as strange ducks. Now, many people in my organization would refer to me as a strange duck. You don't fit into the normal conform of the organization. You have special needs. If you're managing these people, the key here is offer protection. Give them the freedom, give them the latitude to go fulfill the dream and do it the right way. The other is give them the authority to make decisions. Don't take their idea away from them, give it to somebody else, and just put them in the implementation role. Put them in a position that clearly gives them the authority. They are the heart and soul of a project. Give them the authority to raise their hands and object to the direction that things are going, because you've brought them in specifically for their passion and hopefully with their alignment with what the marketplace is looking for. You have to give them the authority and give them a voice. Don't bury them into a large team and therefore they just become a cog in the wheel. You got to give them the authority. And last but not least, you got to give them the resources so they can fulfill their dream, whether that be program dollars or headcount or whatever it is. Now, if you've listened to the podcast, you also know that I'm a big believer on constraint-based innovation. Never, ever give a team 100% of the resources they ask for. This also comes into your ability as management to understand what are the right level of resources. I've never seen a team be successful when it's given 100% of its resources. Because what's going to happen is that they're going to use the exact same processes, the exact same procedures, the exact same tools that they used on the last project, which means you're going to get the exact same result. With constraint-based innovation, you force the team to look at the problem differently. They're looking at the issues, and they're going to drive to a solution that's based on what constraints they have. And what many times results is simple elegance. They have to get smarter about how they're going to solve the problem with less resources. The best innovations that I've been involved in has been the result of constraint-based innovation. But at the same time, you can't ask a team to do the absolute impossible. So you have to understand the balance. What is it they would like to have? What is it they absolutely need in order to change the world with whatever the idea is? So now you've identified the innovation champion, you've brought them in, you've positioned them for success, but now you need to be careful. Where a lot of organizations fail is they get these individuals in, they give them the resources, they're delivering against a project. When that project is done, what happens to those champions? In many organizations, they become one-hit wonders. 2, 3, 4 years from now, they're still living off the laurels of what they delivered 2 or 3 years ago. So you have to understand that champions go through highs and lows. They tend to be very emotionally tied to the cycle of a project. If the project's in the early stages and everything's really exciting and it's ramping and it's growing, up to the point of delivering, everybody's high energy. Once you get past that kind of gate of saying, okay, it's done and now you're shipping something, the champions tend to go through this kind of almost depressive state. Their emotions dry out. They sometimes are lost as to what the next thing they should be working on. They've lost that passion. What do you do with them? The key here is that you have to understand these cycles. And you need to be thinking about 2 to 3 projects ahead of the champions. Yes, they're currently on a project. Yes, it's a critical project. They are the champions. They're passionate. But you have to understand who that individual is, and you've got to be thinking about the next 2 or 3 projects. And actually, before the current project hits its peak, you've got to get that champion to start working on the next project. You got to give them a problem statement. It's what I would call baiting. What I typically do is I'll meet with the champion and I'll say, I know you're working on this project, great success, but you know something? I've got this really, really hard problem and nobody in the world has been able to try to solve this particular problem. Can you take a look at it and give me some thoughts? Don't give them the project. Don't give them the problem definition. Give them a challenge. That's what champions want. They want challenges, and they want you to raise the bar on the challenges. Make them harder for them. Make them have to reach for it. Make them get that satisfaction that when they solve it, they've solved a major problem. So in this case, you got to be thinking 2 or 3 projects ahead. Now, you may pitch 2 or 3 problem areas, and that particular champion may not click. You need to keep looking. You need to create the next problem that those champions are going to work on. So literally what it looks like is if you drew kind of the hump of a normal project, startup, hits the peak, slacks off, the next project needs to start such that literally the peaks of these projects stay fairly flat to each other and don't overlap a whole lot. So you get a little bit of a dip and you're back onto the peak of the next project. You get a little bit of a dip and you're back onto the peak of the next project. That allows you to give the back off a little bit on your champions, give them a little bit of break between projects, but you keep them at a very high level. You keep them engaged, you keep their passion high, you give them the tools, and you give them the resources to be able to go really win. Now, the key here is when you find those projects is you have to align them with their passion, their interest, and you got to create these new challenges. Just as I said, you got to be able to word it in such a way such that, like I said, I've got this problem. Nobody in the world has been able to solve this problem. Can you go take a look at it? And what you find is these champions will just latch onto these things, and all of a sudden they're off on the next thing, and they're going to go solve this problem for you, which hopefully will result in that killer product or that killer idea. Now, if you're a listener to this podcast, I've got a sinking suspicion that you're one of those innovation champions. I get lots of emails from listeners, and I'm guessing it also has answers to your problem, which is, I've got this great idea, Phil. I can't get management to hear me out. I really think that this is going to be the killer thing. How do I go make it happen? So if you are the champion for an idea within your organization, how do you make yourself known without being a total pain and getting blown off by management? One is share your authentic passion. What's the underlying passion that's really driving you towards this idea? Is it your passion for customers? Is it your passion for technology? Is it your passion for competitiveness? Whatever it is, share whatever your authentic passion is. And then contribute to existing programs. Find programs and projects within your organization that align with your passion. Find a team, whether it's an official team, meaning they're working on an official project, or find an unofficial team, a team that's thinking in different areas, that's not, quote, officially funded to go solve a problem, but is thinking about it. Be part of a team and show your authentic passion. Use your passion on an existing team. The other way to do this is create a portfolio. Now, what I mean by portfolio is not just, oh, here's all the products I worked on. What you want to do is you want to show diversity of passions, diversity of interests. So if you're working on programs and projects in the area of technology, but you also have a passion for music or video editing or cars, whatever, create a portfolio that shows your achievements along a really diverse set of areas. And then don't be quiet. Let management know that you've got an idea, that you have authentic passion, it aligns with what your personal passion's about, and don't give up. Don't give in. Now, don't be annoying. Pitch your idea. Make sure you've got the attention. Make sure people aren't just giving you, trying to scan an email and trying to make a decision on an email. Get them engaged in such a way that they can validate your passion, validate your idea, see your portfolio, and see how it aligns with their organization and ultimately their success. So if you are a champion, don't give up. Be the guy with the hair on fire standing on a desk of an executive, convincing that executive that you've got that next idea and that your passion is going to carry this project through to success. Well, based on the popularity of the last podcast creativity exercise, given the number of comments that were posted in the show notes with the ideas on the ink pen with no ink in it, I'm actually going to try this again. We've got another creativity exercise for this week's show. So this creativity tool is what I would call the MacGyver or Apollo 13 method. So for those of you who are probably in the younger generation who don't remember the MacGyver TV show, this is a guy who was a agent for a government who basically could solve any problem, including defusing bombs and saving the world based on a Swiss Army knife, a little bit of string, and bubble gum. He could literally create anything out of what was in his pockets and save the world. Kind of like in line with what happened on Apollo 13, where they had to solve the problem of the explosion on the Apollo and bring the astronauts home safely. And the crew and team back on Earth worked together, pulled out the rabbit out of the hat, and was able to create tools that they could actually build on the spaceship to safely bring them home, where failure was not an option. So in this case, how do you use whatever you have available to you to solve the problem? So with a MacGyver or Apollo 13 method, you're given a problem or an objective. You open up your desk drawer, your purse, your briefcase, or even your pockets. Use only the items you have. Don't cheat and go buy something. You can only use the items you have, and then create as many ideas within 20 minutes. So again, you're given a problem or objective. You open your desk drawer, your purse, your briefcase. You can only use the items you have, and you can create as many ideas within 20 minutes. So for this exercise, you get to work and you realize you forgot to get a gift for a coworker's upcoming wedding. So you were given the task of creating a gift or buying a gift for a coworker's upcoming wedding. You can only use the items in your reach, in your purse, your briefcase, and your desk drawer. Each item must be practical. Each idea that you come up with has to be practical. It can't be artistic. It's got to have a practical use. Each idea must be made from 2 or more items that you have on your desk. So the task is, how many ideas can you come up with in 20 minutes? So again, you get to work and you realize you forgot to get a gift for a coworker's upcoming wedding. You can only use the items within your reach. Each idea must be practical, so you must be able to describe its use. Each idea must be made from 2 or more items. And how many ideas can you come up with 20 minutes? Now I'm going to encourage you again to post your ideas in the show notes. And actually, if you send me photos, I'll post the photos also in the show notes. So if you actually go off and create something at your desk, take a quick snapshot, send them to me at podcast@killerinnovations.com, and I'll post them in the show notes. So again, let's see how many ideas you can come up with to create a practical set of wedding gifts. How many ideas can you come up with whatever you have within arm's reach? And you have 20 minutes to do so. So get going. This week's listener question is how do you find adjacencies for an innovation? Now this was sent in by Byron. And the question really revolved around the fact that they've got a business in a certain area serving a very large customer or customer segment. And how do they take what they've got and find innovations? Now, the segment that they're in and the customer they're after is very, very large, lots of volume. But their product technology actually applies potentially to other verticals or other industries, entirely other segments. And how do you find those adjacencies? Well, let me give you a little bit of insight of how I break down core, adjacencies, and new. So, core are your base products, services, whatever it is you deliver to your customers today. Adjacencies are taking whatever you develop and going after an entirely new kind of segment with that product. New are fundamentally entirely new areas that you're going after, things that you're going to drive and ultimately create entirely new growth engines, new products, new services that don't exist in your portfolio today. Now, as a general rule for investment, so if you're investing in product development or the development and design of new services or whatever, is what I would call the 70-20-10 method. 70% should be tied to the core, 20% should be tied to adjacencies, and 10% creating fundamentally new growth engines. How do you find those adjacencies? Well, the reality is they could already exist. So you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. What customers are using a product in ways that you never anticipated? Now, you may think you know your customers. You may think that you know how your customers use your product. You're not going to know that from sitting behind the desk or looking at a spreadsheet. Go through your customer list that are buying your products and services and look for customers that look strange, don't look normal. They're not what you would typically view as customers for your products. and then go visit them. Find out how they're using your product. How are they applying whatever you're doing in a new and interesting way? So look for what customers are using a product in ways not anticipated. Now, in that same vein, you can go to existing customers and look at how are customers using your products in extreme situations. So if it's technology, is there some small segment of your existing customer base that uses them in extreme temperatures or extreme environmental conditions, a lot of shaking and taking a lot of abuse, extreme conditions on where it's being used at. Maybe you think most of your customers are in the metropolitan and maybe this isn't being used in the rural segments, new geographies. Look for where your customers are using your products in extreme situations. So if you look along these two lines, customers that are using your product in ways not even anticipated, or customers that are using your products in extreme situations. Two key questions, if you dig through and find the answers on those, we'll be able to find some adjacencies that your products can go into. Now, if you can't find one within your existing customer, it doesn't mean that they don't exist, meaning the adjacency doesn't exist. What I would suggest you do is do what we call a 360-degree search. Hold a series of ideation sessions that look at your current product and look at all possible areas of innovation. So if you go back to some of the original podcasts, you'll note that there's 8 segments to a 360-degree view for innovation, such as new geography, new competitive arena, industry structure, value chain, etc. So run an ideation session for whatever product or service you've got. Hold one ideation session for each of the 8 segments for a 360-degree search. So take your product, go off, do an ideation session, create as many ideas as you can about your product in a new geography, using your product in a new competitive arena, using your product to change an industry structure. Maybe you've got a service that applied to a certain industry will help that entire industry change its structure, change the value chain, whatever it is. Look through and do an entire 360-degree search. Hold concerted ideation sessions in each of the segments, and I'm sure you're going to find some new adjacencies. Adjacencies are key. They're high margin return given the investment that you already have in your base product and service. It's basically focusing on finding customers that are not obvious to you today that will be great revenue and margin contributors to your business for the future. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Don't forget to send your feedback. You can always email me at podcast@killerinnovations.com. You can also post your comments to the blog, the show notes, or over on the group site and Facebook. Also, feel free to link into me. You can link to me at Skype, so it's Phil_McKinney is my Skype handle. You can also join the Killer Innovations group on Facebook. There's a lot of conversation going on over there now, and a lot of people are joining over there to help identify other people who are interested in the Killer Innovations podcast, and generally just people who are interested in innovation. You can also join me on Facebook as a friend individually. You can also use LinkedIn. If you use LinkedIn as your social network to establish your own network of contacts, send me an invite at podcast@killerinnovations.com. Now, in any of these cases, whether it's Skype, Facebook, or LinkedIn, please note that you are a listener to the podcast. I get a lot of invites. If you do not say you're a listener, I will not accept. So that just helps keep the sanity of how many of the requests I'm getting. So please, I'd love to join up our networks and be available for questions you might have. Now, I may not be able to answer everyone personally, but please feel free to join up, but please note that you are a listener. Also, a lot of people ask how they can help out with the podcast. Can they contribute to the hosting cost or the production cost of each of these podcasts? And what I tell people is, all I ask for you as a listener of the podcast is to pay it forward. Pay it forward to somebody else that's earlier in their career. Pay it forward in the form of helping your organization become more innovative. Pay it forward by going and speaking at schools, helping kids understand the role of creativity and innovation. All I ask is that you pay it forward. Tell others about the importance of innovation and creativity. Feel free to link into the site as a resource for those, and feel free to share the content and the information that you get from the podcast. The only constraint that I put on that is it's for non-commercial use. Everything in this podcast, everything on the website is licensed under Creative Commons, non-commercial. Also, don't forget to vote for your favorite podcast. I know that I'm probably not the only podcast you listen to, so I'm doing this on behalf of all the great content that you do listen to, but vote. It's the easiest way for you to let the producers of your podcast know that you do appreciate all the time, work, and expense they put into creating the great content. You can vote over at Dig.com, Podcast Alley, Podcast Pickle, iTunes, or wherever you download your podcast content. Also, send in your listener question. I'm getting more questions now, but I'd like to get a lot more, so feel free to send in your listener questions, and I'll use them in upcoming podcasts. And you can send those to podcast@killerinnovations.com. And again, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to download and listen to the podcast. I do appreciate the time out of your busy schedule to listen to my rants and raves about creativity and innovation, and I hope that you find it useful. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.